As usual, I'm just gonna do this off the cuff. No, there's no script. I'm just flowing. So if I stutter, it's because I'm thinking or whatever. I'm not one of them big YouTubers with the teleprompters in the back, and I just keep it real. I just flow. Okay, so let's talk about the lies that you believe, it's plural, about Bitcoin, okay? And why you have probably believed at least one of the lies about Bitcoin. There are many lies about Bitcoin. I'm going to address the main three, all right? So first of all, let's just address for the Dave Ramsey group, for the fire folk, Bitcoin is a scam. All right, so let me just, as quickly as I can, let me just talk about why Bitcoin was created. All right, so number one, the system that we're in now, the system that most of us use, it is the most corrupt, the most unfair system, known to man, period, when it comes to finances and stuff like that. All right, what are you talking about? You sound crazy. All right, so I'm not gonna go back to the 1700s. I could, I won't, but I'm just gonna address from the creation of, the dollar and the Fed. Okay, since the creation of the Fed, the dollar has lost, not joking, 99% of its value. Well, no, that can't be true. A dollar is a dollar. No, a dollar is not a dollar. You might still see a dollar, but the reality is what a dollar is able to buy. You're able to buy 99% less than what you could in the 1930s with that $1. This is due to inflation. What does that mean? In the 1930s, a gallon of milk, I don't know because I wasn't there, but maybe it was 10 cents. Maybe it was 20 cents. Maybe. Okay, how much is a gallon of milk now? How much is a steak now? Okay, that's how you measure inflation, and that's how you measure, whether you're getting, a good deal on your money. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is you're going to work. You're getting, some form of education, whether that be a trade or, whether you're going to college or something. And hopefully you're contributing something to society, okay? Well, wouldn't it be great is if as everything went up in value, as meat went up, as milk went up, as bread went up, as healthcare goes up, transportation goes up, education goes up, okay, that the dollars that you make while you work would also increase, like automatically. It would be great if we had a situation where, we have a governing body that says, okay, the cost of everything has gone up, right? So now we're going to make sure that, everybody gets 20% more dollars this year because the cost of Netflix went up, because healthcare went up, because daycare went up, right? That's how it works, right? No, that's not how it works. Okay, so everything around you is getting more expensive. Everything around you is getting more expensive, yet you are, for your labor, for your education, comparatively, you are getting less and less money, and everything else around you is going up. Okay? I just discovered this last night. Could not believe it. I sold my house last year around this time. Okay? I made a good bit of money on the sale of my house. I put in a lot of sweat equity in that house. Okay? It wasn't a nice house when I bought it. My wife and I worked really hard. Okay? So we sold it last year because, we knew we wanted to move. We wanted to do traveling and things like that. I just looked up the value of my house last night, and I couldn't believe it. My house that I sold, that this guy beat me up over some made up certificate about, what was it about? I can't think of the bugs that eat wood. It was a made up, he brought in his own guy to say that I had termite. I never had any termites or anything, just to get the price down $5,000. We were ready to go. I'm like, man, I'm not gonna trip about $5,000 because I'm about to take everything that I'm making from this house and I'm about to put it in crypto. Okay, so I did that. Well, my house has increased in value 20% in 1 year. I could not believe it. 20% in 1 year, okay? And that's happening around, America's happening around the world. It's happening in Europe. It's happening everywhere, okay? All right, so now, with respect to Bitcoin, the reason why Bitcoin was created in the first place was because of the 2008 crisis. And just keeping it real, what the 2008 crisis was about was an over leveraging of positions by companies, by insurance companies, and by individuals. Money was very cheap. Okay, you could get money pretty easily, and people took that money and they bought real estate with it. You didn't have to show income. Allegedly, I didn't participate in it because I didn't have no money. But you didn't have to show income or anything like that. You could just show your checking account, and if you had enough in your checking, then they would just pretty much give you a mortgage, and it was being insured by the government, by Fannie Mae, by FHA, by whatever, and it created a bubble. Okay, so what Satoshi decided to do after yet another recession, after yet another crash, he's like, we need to have a monetary system, a technology that's separate from, government control. Okay, why is that important? Because the only way a government can respond to a monetary crisis is to print money. That's it. That's the only thing they can do is print money. Okay? And when they print money, what that does is that dilutes the value of the money that you already have. It's simple supply and demand. If there's $1 trillion in the world, right, before the crisis, we need to get money into the hands of people. So we're going to make another $1 trillion, right? That, dilutes the value of the dollar that you have. It may not be 50% immediately, but over time, that value will dilute. Now you add capitalism on top of that. Okay, and that's really the main driver of a lot of the issues with our financial system right now. Is capitalism. What is capitalism? It is, I'm going to bleed every dollar that I can out of people, out of things, and everything, just so I can improve the bottom line, just so I can improve my earnings per share, because all of the directors, the CEO, and everybody else is getting paid based on the stock price, whether that be actual stock or stock options. So literally you have a small group of people who are dedicated to making the stock price higher, and they'll do whatever they can. They will lay off people. They will dilute the product. You know, if we used to put so much sugar in the lemonade, we're going to add more water to the lemonade and make it nasty. We're going to put less chips in the bag. I remember being able to go to the store and with $1, I could get 4 bags of chips. Okay, they were 25 cents each. Now I believe, because I don't go to the store that much, I think those bags are probably $1 themselves. The little 25-cent bag, they're at least 79 or 80 something cents or something like that. Okay, that's inflation with capitalism on top. So we really live in an unfair system. So what it creates is this situation where you're in a rat race, where you always feel like you need more education to one up somebody. It's not good enough to have a bachelor's degree anymore, right? When your grandmother went to school, or maybe your mother, depending on your age, when she went to college, first of all, she was able to get a college degree for maybe $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 for a semester. The government paid part of that, and she was able to get a job making 5-6 times what the cost of her education was, when you factor the 4-year cost. Okay, now you're paying 30, 40, 50, 60,000 a year or more if you're not fortunate enough to get a scholarship to get an education, but you're doing that to come out and get a job possibly making 40, 50,000. Okay, so the cost of the acquisition of your education is not paying off in the same way as it used to be. Why is that? That's because more people are getting an education. A bachelor's degree is nothing now. You need a master's degree. So now we have people with master's degrees, not making this up, working at department stores, working at restaurants with master's degrees. Eventually, master's degrees are going to be worth, and I'm going to tell you right now, most degrees are worthless. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Unless you're a doctor, a nurse, an architect, a lawyer, and I've even talked to some lawyers recently who said it's so competitive, you can't get a job as a lawyer, etc. That's our system. Okay? So what Satoshi decided to do is, let's say, okay, let's try to create something that's decoupled from the fiat system that we use, right? And the only thing that we have to do is use this system. Everybody work together to build this system, and value will be created if we limit the supply. But we can't just make this out of thin air like the government does. We have to have something that produces what we're going to use. Okay? So what he chose to do was think about the gold industry. But the gold industry is ridiculously destructive to our environment. It is what gold does to the environment and other precious metals it is ridiculous, the environmental impact. But notice you don't hear anybody talking about that. Okay? So what he did was create a type of digital mining that requires some power. And you have to have some power to produce these. And the more the network is used, the more power is required, the better technology that's required. And then every so often, we're going to increase what's called the difficulty of the hash rate. And so it's going to become even harder and harder the more that we use it to mine these. Okay? That is the intrinsic value of Bitcoin. The fiat system has no intrinsic value. You can just print as much as you can. So to call Bitcoin a scam, it just means that you're misinformed, that you haven't done the information. Bitcoin was born out of necessity because of the system that we have today. All right, so I talked about energy. I'm sorry, I talked about it being a scam. Now let's address the hot button number 2, and that's the energy usage. Oh, Bitcoin is bad for the environment. There could not be anything further from the truth. All right. Does Bitcoin consume energy? Yes. I just explained to you. Why does it need to do that? Because we need to have a system where you cannot just print money out of thin air. Okay? You have to go and do something. It requires something. It requires some energy. All right. So, but the energy that Bitcoin uses is so small comparatively to the other industries, is not even funny. All right. So just the fiat industry, which is credit cards, real money, is what most of you use. The fiat industry uses probably about, no joke, 15 to 16 times at least, I think I'm underestimating, more energy than Bitcoin. Okay, well, how is that possible? Well, the first thing is, if it's money, you need what? Trees. You got to cut down trees, which automatically hurts our environment. Then you need water and other things to create the paper. Then it's not like this is Star Trek and we can just zap money to each other. That money has to then be delivered. So you put the paper money on trucks that use what? That use gas and oil and pollute the environment. But we're not done yet. Where are we taking the money? We're taking the money to places, to mainly banks or exchange places that also use what? Electricity. You're not going into a dark bank. That bank has lights. It needs power. It needs water to run that bank, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? And then now to go get that money, people have to do what? Drive to that bank, go cash a check, go get the money, drive back home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Now, all right, well, BSG, I use my debit cards. So I don't fool with cash, I use debit cards. All right. Are credit cards a little bit more efficient? Barely. Why? Because you have to produce the cards. You need oil to produce the plastic. Okay? Then once you get these plastic cards, it's not like you can use them forever. For whatever reason, the banks give an expiration date on those cards. Your card will only last 2 to 3, 4 years tops. Okay? And you should know, since you're so much into the environment, that plastic is literally impossible to break down. So that plastic waste goes into the water. Okay? It goes into our food supply. Fish consume it. It meshes with the ecosystem of the fish and the algae. And algae is the biggest contributor to clean air. It's not trees, it's algae. It's the algae that's sucking up most of our pollution, not just trees. Okay? So to say that Bitcoin is destructive to the environment is just funny. All right, so now let's talk about non-monetary systems. Again, since you're so concerned about the environmental impacts of Bitcoin. All right. So cow farts and cow belches it depends on the year, but for the past few years, they've been number 1 in terms of the environmental impact of methane gas. Number 1. Cows are hurting the environment. Methane gas is 28 times more potent and more lethal than just regular carbon emissions from cars. And one cow One cow produces 220 pounds of methane gas every single year. One cow. And with the increase in population, what we have is a situation where we're having to produce more meat because there's more people, right? And that's only going to get worse, which means we're going to have to produce more cows, which means more methane gas, which means more impact on the environment. So if you are concerned about the environmental impact as of right now, and I'm not done, you need to do two things. Number one, you need to stop using the fiat system altogether. No money, no credit cards. And then you need to stop eating meat immediately. You also need to stop driving cars. Because, again, the emissions from cars, even though cows beat cars, cars beat significantly Bitcoin. Okay? And finally, as it pertains to this part, the environmental impact, we have technology that allows the transporting of Bitcoin on systems that are much, much more efficient. Meaning, you don't have to use the Bitcoin network in order to realize the vision of being able to trade Bitcoin peer-to-peer or with stores or whatever else. There's other networks, one in particular, I'm not going to get into it, where literally it costs virtually nothing to exchange this, and it's still backed by the Bitcoin network. Okay? Which leads me to myth and lie number 3, and this is for all you crypto heads out there. Oh, the Bitcoin technology is old because of the environmental impact and all this. All right. So, as I said, and I teach this in my course, yes, we do have some networks that will allow the transmission of Bitcoin much, much more efficiently. Okay? And we should use the ones that are responsible, the ones that are the most decentralized, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, to say that the Bitcoin technology is old is asinine. It's ridiculous, because most of these other networks, the ones that you hear about on YouTube, okay, and I'm going to mention some specifically, most of them are no different than the fiat system in that it's not decentralized. You have a few people, number one, who created the token out of thin air, right? We go back to Bitcoin. We have to mine the Bitcoins. All of the Bitcoins that are in existence have been mined. They need to be mined. They require energy. All of these other systems, one person sat at a computer and created the entire supply in one transaction or a couple transactions. And that includes Ethereum, by the way. So when Ethereum was created, Vitalik minted, I don't know what the number is offhand. I got a 7 in my house. I don't know if it's 70 million or 700, but he minted a bunch of Ethereum and gave that to the Ethereum Foundation himself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because he could, because he created it. That's not decentralized. And so what you have happening is, when it comes to the Ethereum networks, you have just a few people who are controlling the network and are able to control who is able to solve the Ethereum proof of work system. Literally 80% of Ethereum transactions go through 3 or 4 of the nodes, validators, whatever you want to call it. 80%. Okay? Then we have other ones like Solana which is basically a venture capitalist based crap coin, what I call a dookie token, which doesn't work. It literally does not work. The network has been shut down. Last I checked, it was the 4th time. I don't know if they've had another time after that. And it is completely centralized. The fact that they were able to shut down and restart the network tells you how centralized it is. But yet, you crypto heads out there have this thing where you don't respect Bitcoin and you think some other token can do better because of the so-called transactions per second that they can do. All right, so let's address that. Nobody in crypto land is using anything that's 10,000 transactions per second. The number one decentralized exchange in the world based on transactions, doing most of the transactions and all of DeFi, they're currently doing about 60 to 70 transactions per second. Number one, there's about 10 million DeFi transactions every day, and this chain is doing 50 to 60% of them every day. They're doing 5 to 6 times the transactions as Ethereum every single day. Network has never been shut down. Okay? So, this notion that, all right, we need 10,000 transactions. We're not even there yet. Okay? We're not even there yet. Not even close to being there. All right? Number two, the ones that say they can do 10,000 transactions per second, they're not even doing 50 or 60 yet because they can't, because they've had bugs and issues and so on and so forth. There's so much power, guys, in proof of work. And it just works. The Bitcoin network has never, ever been shut down. Do you know how amazing that is? It's never, ever been shut down because it's foolproof. It's also never, ever been hacked. The Bitcoin network has never, ever been hacked, in part because it's proof of work, in part because it's the most decentralized network out there. So I would say the majority of crypto is focused on all these other, dookie tokens. And I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist by any stretch, not even close. Okay? But you're just focusing on transactions per second and all that. You're not focusing on who's in control. If you think Ethereum is decentralized, you're crazy. If you think Solana is decentralized, you're absolutely crazy. Venture capitalists who are pouring money into crypto have figured out that all they have to do is have a certain face, and all they have to do is have a marketing budget, and they pay all these YouTubers that you watch, Ivan on Tech and others, they pay them insane amounts of money, and they'll go on there and say, oh, this is the greatest project, I'm getting involved and all of that. And because you don't do your own research, you follow them into that. Meanwhile, they created these tokens from nothing. So they're literally able to create wealth from nothing. How is that decentralized? How is that fair? Right? Everybody should have equal, depending on the situation, everybody should have equal access or at least a fair shot. It's not fair if you're starting off with 10 million tokens and I'm starting off with 0. And I have to take my hard-earned money to buy the token, and then, you're marketing, and then you're selling at the top, you're cashing out, and I don't know any better. Because I'm just watching YouTube and I'm holding on. That's what has happened to people who have held Cardano, who bought the hype of Cardano going to $100. I say, Cardano going to $1,000. Once Cardano got to $3, I called it on Twitter. I said Cardano will be 75 cents. You can go to my Twitter right now, check that. And literally last week or a couple weeks ago, Cardano hit 75 cents. Why? Because it's crap. Because it doesn't work. And you're being told, Bitcoin is bad, buy this other thing. It's all about greed and power. There are people in crypto that don't want Bitcoin to succeed because they can't control it. Literally, man wants to control. That's really what it's all about. So since they can't control it, well, let me create my own thing that I can control and I can make a bunch of money. That is the truth. And while I'm not saying we shouldn't try to improve the technology, yes, we should. But it's still right now too early, way too early to abandon Bitcoin on the notion of transactions per second when we're not even close to doing that many transactions per second, because we're not at the point where we're seeing mainstream adoption. What is mainstream adoption, BSG? Mainstream adoption is when you can go buy a crypto from whatever exchange, centralized or decentralized, and it goes on your phone, and then you go down to the local store and you can buy something with that crypto, never touching a bank, never having to interact with the bank, nothing. Okay, that technology exists right now, but we're not seeing major adoption in the Western world. We're seeing a ton of adoption in Africa. They're doing that right now in Africa, which is why you see Jack Dorsey and CZ of Binance focusing more on Africa and the Middle East, because they get it, because they need it, because their governments are crazy corrupt. Okay, and despite the dollar falling, their currency is falling way more. All right, so I don't want to make the video too long. It's already been a little long. I just wanted to address the main lies that you believe about Bitcoin, and why you just need to ignore that. Just educate yourself. The information is out there. I believe that Bitcoin is such a playing field leveler. That's all I can say. I was fortunate enough to get in early, but when I got in, I thought I was late. When I bought Bitcoin at $1,000, and I knew that people had bought it for $1, I literally thought I was too late. And now here we are, and I know that even now, right now, Bitcoin is crazy undervalued. So I recommend it 100%. If you want to learn more about the industry and how I've been able to beat Bitcoin, which no hedge fund has been able to do, the S&P 500 hasn't been able to do. For the past 8 years, I've beaten Bitcoin. Then I have a course. You may have heard about it. You can check that out and learn all about that and see how I've beaten it. But if you don't do anything else, you don't trust people who give courses or whatever, I can tell you for free, just buy Bitcoin and don't worry about the ups and downs. Just sit on it for 10 years and watch what happens.